Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Brian E. Roach.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Brian E. Roach, the host who doesn't like toast. And the podcast, as usual, is brought to you by our sponsor, NFL Photoshop. Jump over to steelcity.com/photos. And if you click on the link there, you can get photos of NFL players, NFL games in a variety of different formats. And if you use the code Steel City, you can get 25% off your order. For this edition of the podcast, it kind of feels like a really special treat for me. We're going to be joined by a special guest who is a former Steeler, two-time Super Bowl winning champion, and ex-linebacker and defensive end for the Steelers, Robin Cole. Robin, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate being on your show.
It's interesting. You know, we've had some other players on in the past. We've talked to a bunch of different people, and you know, from my standpoint, because I'm old enough to have watched every game you played with us, and I have solid recollections of it, but for a lot of, you know, our younger listeners, millennials, they may not know the history of the team quite as well. We even have some guys here at SCU who don't know the history of the team quite as well as they maybe should. But, you know, you played in the late 70s, early 80s for the Steelers. You got a chance to play with a lot of the Steelers legends that we think of. What kind of memories do you have from those years with the Steelers?
Well, let me correct the first part of that. I did play in the started off in the late 70s, but I also played in the late 80s.
That's true.
Because my last year was 88, which I split the year. I was preseason. I was in the Steelers camp for all 7 weeks, and so Chuck Noll got an opportunity for the 12th year to beat me something bloody, and then from there I ended up with the New York Jets at the end of that. But going back to 1977, when I first came to the Pittsburgh Steelers, it was I came in with mixed emotions. Even though I was a first-round pick, I used to always share with myself and with colleagues of mine that I wanted to be on a championship team. I had played football up to that time, 4 years in high school, and then I played 4 years in college, and we had never had a championship team that I was a part of any of those years. And then when I get drafted by the Steelers, I said, wow, they already won. I don't know if we, you know, I did get my wish to be a part of a championship team, but I thought all the Super Bowls were gone. And little did I know, in 77, we had a pretty good year in 77, had a couple of guys hold out in the beginning of that year, but they eventually came back, and in 78 got another opportunity to play on a championship team. And then, with the momentum that we had, we played in two, in 78 and in 79. I came in as a linebacker after camp in 77. My first game was a Monday night football game in 1977 against the San Francisco 49ers, and I broke my arm in the fourth quarter. I just broke that thing in half, and was out for 8 weeks, and came back and finished the season with a broken arm. So that was quite a year, that first year. And but I tell you what, coming to this team was just phenomenal. To have worked with some of the greatest football teams and coaches and owners of all times, guys that are in the Hall of Fame, to be a part of those teams. And, you know, we all have different roles when it comes to a championship team, but everybody plays a part. Sometimes this is hard to help people understand, because people always people like the fizzle and the balloons and the popping and all that type of thing. Who's ever jumping up and down, making all the noise? Well, there's a lot of people on that team, that 45-unit team that's playing, and their support cast. And every player on that team has a very, very important role. And sometimes when I'm out speaking, I kind of share that with people. It's not you remember a couple of names because they're receiving all the accolades and all the promotions. But there's other players on that team that have played just as long as them, that were right beside them, that you don't know anything about or you don't hear about, because they don't receive all the buzzing around their ears when it comes to their names. But every one of those players were phenomenal players and they were just also great people.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, and one of the things I wanted to ask you about is a lot of people, me included, think that Chuck Noll still doesn't really get the credit he deserves for the type of coach he was and the job that he did. And he, when people mention the best coaches of all time, they talk about Madden, they talk about Belichick, but they don't always bring up Coach Noll. But, from your standpoint, you got a chance to play for him. What are your impressions of Coach Noll and how he is remembered or perceived?
Well, even before Belichick or even before Bill Parcells, and he started winning his championship run, when we talk about football teams, we talk about tradition. Teams and people that's been around, like the Vince Lombardi, the Don Shula, they built their teams based on the tradition that they have built, and the tradition followed the foundation. Building on a foundation and a solid foundation that carries throughout the years, that helps us, reminds us of the early years where there was tradition. But it was built on a foundation, on a solid foundation. Without a solid foundation, the next level or next group of men that come in to play for your team, if they have no foundation, they don't understand what it takes to win, or they don't even understand if they came from a college program that had winning teams. If you don't have a foundation, they have no idea themselves how to go about building and formulating that foundation. Chuck Noll knew how to do that. Chuck Noll built that foundation and built that team from the floor up. He recalled a lot of the players that were there when he first came to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Talks about how he said after the first year that they played and they had a meeting, and he looked at the team meeting and said, I found out what our problem is. And the guys kind of thought in their mind, well, what is the problem? Well, a bunch of you guys are just no good. Okay, and we're going to do something about that. And that's when he started to change. It was like, we got to bring some better players in here to be able to compete at the level that we're playing at. Chuck Noll was the guy that built that foundation, and he had to start the foundation on his own here with the Pittsburgh Steelers from the ground up. But he was with some guys like Don Shula in the early years that he learned from how to build that foundation. And that's where you're learning from. When we talk about the Bill Parcells and we talk today about Bill Belichick has been a part of a lot of teams that have built foundations. And he today is a guy that has studied and studied and studied. He wasn't a good football player. He was a studier of football. He was a ball boy when he first got started playing. And he learned positions and he learned how to coach, and mostly what he learned along with that is he learned the chess game of football, and he was really good at it. And the coaches that he had recruited around him, he brings in guys that are good at the chess game of football. And then he has good teachers too, and that's how the foundation is built. Chuck Noll was a guy, one of the early guys to build a foundational team, like he has, with solid people that could play at any level at any time. I know a lot of guys are older now; they're in their late 60s and 70s, but most of those guys can get in front of a team today and teach the part that they learned about the foundation to anybody. They could probably, you pull them off the street and they can, if you needed a coach, they can go coach it because we were all good at it. And that's something that you carry with you. But a lot of times we like to leave part of that with us, and a lot of us don't get the opportunity to coach. Yeah, some of us don't want to do that, but a lot of us don't get the opportunity to be coaches because there's only so much room for so many players and so many coaches that they don't get that opportunity to leave a part of themselves back out there on the football field. But the ones that does, they do a tremendous job at it. And I've said in the early years when there were very few football players that were coaching, and when I came into the league, that we needed more football players to coach, because there's things that I see happening on the football field that if they would have learned that process early on and building that foundation, they would have a better defense. The players would become a whole lot better, and golly, all the way around, you'd see that a little bit more of the game.
So, yeah, that's I agree, and I from my standpoint, I often wonder, if the fact that he had such talent on that team, and not just as you said, not just the guys who got all of the accolades, but I mean those 70s teams and 80s and early 80s teams, they were just loaded with talent across the board, and I wonder if sometimes having that much talent overshadowed the coach to a certain extent, where people really gave more credit to just having the players than to him really kind of creating the structure that everybody needed to win.
No, really, Chuck wanted it that way. Chuck used to, Chuck didn't do commercials or any of those kinds of things. People asked him to do that. He said, no, let the players do those things. He wasn't interested in all the accolades. He was interested in doing the job that he was paid to do, the job that he had designed, and handling coaches and then you had to handle the press. You had to deal with it that way, but he wasn't interested in doing commercials and that. Chuck wasn't a guy that wanted to be in front of the televisions and doing all those kind of things. He said, let the players do that, and so that's the way it was. But a lot of times, we have to help people realize that everybody's not the highlights and want to be in front of the camera and telling the jokes. So those accolades, as far as he's concerned, goes to the players, and which is it takes a real man to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
Because in today's world, everybody wants to be the man.
Yep. So now you were part of, as we said, of the last two Super Bowls that the Steelers won in the 70s and the 80s. But you got another chance to get close, and I hate to bring up a painful subject, but you got another chance to get close in 84, which was one of your best years and seasons with the Steelers. You were All-Pro that year and went to the Pro Bowl. And the Steelers got to that AFC Championship game against the Dolphins, didn't manage to get over the hump there. How was that in relation to, you got your chance to be on a championship team, and now you're so close you can taste it one more time, but it doesn't quite happen? How does that feel?
Brian, I'm going to share with you, but let me correct you on a couple of things. 1984 was not my best year. I was an outside linebacker. Very few people turned that right side when I played.
Right.
Very few. From 79 all the way up until that time, until we decided to go to the 3-4 defense. And see, I have to talk about myself because nobody else talks about me. So I have to explain it.
Absolutely.
I used to think somebody's going to fly around and explain it for me, or Tinkerbells was going to do that for me, but it never happened. So here I am at 62 years old, so let me explain it. Okay, I thought I had a great year in 79, a great year in 1980, 81. I got a lot of votes for the Pro Bowl back then as outside linebacker. I consider myself one of the top outside linebackers to play the game. I did receive, I was as a representative, as an alternate a couple of times at the outside linebacking position. But we had so many guys. We had, we still had a Jack Ham, and we got Lambert, and then Andy Russell. We were still talking about Andy Russell. People didn't even know I was playing in 1979. They thought Andy Russell was still there, and just the way it was. We just had a lot of guys that had became Pro Bowlers, that were a part of those first championship teams. There were the guys that made it happen in the early years, and so it was hard to break in. So individual stats for me, I had to put that on the back shelf, because being part of a winning team for me was more important. Now, it's not as important today when we look at individuals when they go become Hall of Famers, and their compensation is a whole lot greater than guys that don't become Hall of Famers. But as far as team is concerned, and that's kind of what my motto is, that I prefer the team to win, because together each of us accomplish more compared to me having accomplishments by myself. And I loved it, and I loved being a part of this team, and I would never trade it for anything. Now to move on to 1984, golly, we had a great year. Our linebackers and our defensive line was tremendous. Our secondary wasn't as strong overall. Woody Woodruff was there, and we had some other players back there, but some of the other guys that we have. Once Donnie was still around, but then Donnie left next year. Overall, when it come to long passes, and we didn't realize how we were until later on, when we were playing against a balanced team, we did well. I mean, that's how we got to the AFC Championship team. We beat San Francisco that year.
Yep.
And we thought we would fit well against San Francisco based on the way that they played. But little did we know that the era has started to change, and there was a guy for the Miami Dolphins named Danny Marino, and they threw the ball a whole lot more than they ran it. And when you stopped the run, he could throw the ball. And I tell you what, we were into that game all the way into 3 minutes before the halftime. And Chuck then got a hold of that ball, dropped a big bomb on us to Duper. I think it was Clayton the first time.
Yep.
And then we got the ball back. This is just before halftime. We got the ball back. We threw 3 passes. I don't think we ran 40 seconds off the clock. And we gave the ball right back to him again, and he threw another long bomb. And they went up two more touchdowns ahead of us, and we never caught him after that. Never caught him after that. And we had some challenges offensively of teams that once they got ahead of us and us coming back. And that was just one of our challenges that year offensively. And, we just, if we were in there, we can win the game. But when they got a little ahead of us, we would have challenges coming back that year. And so, golly, against Danny Marino, he bombed us. In Miami, we enjoyed going down there. It was a great year for us.
Yep.
We went to Los Angeles and played in the Coliseum against the Oakland Raiders, and they were expected to beat us, and that didn't happen. We were able to beat them and go to the AFC Championship and lose that game, which then they went to the Super Bowl, and they lost the Super Bowl.
Yep.
But that was a great year for us in 1984, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed going to the Pro Bowl that year, and then the following year, I guess I was an alternate the following year, and I was an alternate the next 2 years. So I was one man out for 5 years.
Yep. And you were talking about this earlier. You played until the late 80s in 88, and as you said, Chuck Noll beat you bloody in training camp, and then got a chance. At that point, you went to the Jets, and a lot of Steelers, a lot of ex-Steelers will. It seems like that's a pattern. They want to get that one last year in, or for whatever reason they don't stay that last season with the Steelers. And I think one of the things that the fans always want to know is what is that transition like, and when you make it, how does that feel comparatively? When you go to like the Jets. And you relate that experience to what it was like being with the Steelers. How do those things compare?
Wow. When I went to the Jets, I mean, I won't say it was day and night, but it was dawn and night. There was a difference. The difference that goes back to the tradition. I mean, once you have a tradition, a man understands what you're doing. And he understands where you're trying to get to because you've been there before. When you haven't been there, it's very hard for players when it's not happening to realize that it can't happen that way. It's a psyche that just sometimes I'm glad I went through what I went through and how I've gone through it. But it's a psyche because when I got there, the New York Jets, I mean, part of the players felt like they could win some games, and golly. Half of that team was ready for Christmas break before the season was over. Yeah. That was a fact. I'm saying, hey, guys, man, we got 3 more games to play, and they're already checking out of their apartments.
Wow.
So what do you mean you're checking out of your apartment? So, oh man, I'm gonna move into a hotel because we're getting ready to go. They already had packed their bags to go home.
It's a mentality, right? It's a mentality of winning,
it is.
And without it,
it really was.
Tough.
Mentality, and and all of a sudden, and I'm telling you what, one of the best. Chuck Noll was the coach that I worked with, but I'm telling you what, there's a lot of coaches in the National Football League, but one of the best was Joe Walton. Joe Walton's not only a great coach, Joe Walton's a good man.
Yep.
And Joe Walton supports his team, he supports his players, he supports the coaches that work with him. Joe Walton was just a great guy. and I had an opportunity to really develop a relationship with Joe Walton that I didn't have, and I was able to develop that relationship with Joe Walton in 1 year that I didn't have with Chuck Noll in 12 years.
Right. Different kind of scheme. Is Chuck always was a little more distant and not as personable with the players, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's different personalities.
Absolutely.
You work beside a guy that's a hard worker and would do anything for you, and then you can work. You work beside a guy that just personality is totally different. He'll laugh and you have a great time around you, and it's just it can be totally different. And you just learn how to deal with all those personalities, how to relate to all those personalities. That's people, and that's becoming people smart is one of the most important accolades I think you can have. As a human being.
Absolutely.
Be able to deal with people. And you can't cut people off because, that guy over there has a handicap and that you may not have, and you think that you're a big shot because, you're walking and talking and whatever. And that's a challenge that we're dealing with here and sometimes in the world is personalities.
Yep. Everybody much different world than back in the day. I mean, you're a little older than I am, but not a lot older than I am. So I know, I understand. It's a different world nowadays, and sometimes you just shake your head.
Oh, yeah, you do. So I went in there and I really tried to make a difference myself because I took books in there. I had a guy order me some books on positive mental thinking and that kind of. And I gave everybody on the team one of those books. Some people read it, some probably didn't.
Yeah.
But I realized real fast after just the undertones of what guys were thinking that, wow, they need to read a message more than they need to just hear one. And so, there's two things. A person, people used to say, a guy used to say, he said, you're going to be the same person today, tomorrow, and for the rest of your life, all but two things, the books you read and the people you associate with. That's what changes you. People that are in prison right now, a lot of them is because of association.
Yeah.
They became who they became. Because the books that they read, some of them reading books, but if they start reading books, it changes the way that they think while they're in prison, and they begin to think about and see things a whole lot differently than they did when they were a younger human being or a younger person or a person that just haven't got to that point to where they feel that their life has any meaning or not.
Yeah, the more breadth you have, the more exposure to other ways of thought, other ways of viewing things makes a huge difference in how you look at not just yourself but the world around you. Exactly.
So I mean, I enjoyed the year. I ended up getting injured. I mean, towards the end of the year, and guess what team I'm playing against?
I'm guessing that it might be from Pittsburgh.
So we're playing a game. It was a good game, and I told him, I told the team, I said, look here, we have to. I said, I have to. It's I don't know what it is. I said, but we have to win. We have to win this game. If I have to do it myself, we're going to win this game.
Absolutely.
And so we were able to do it that year.
I got two more team-related questions. First of all, I assume you still follow the team.
Sure.
Everybody, of course, is somewhat perplexed by this year's group. They got a lot of up and down. Seems like there's some inconsistencies. What do you see when you look at this team?
Well, I see. I do. We're not. They're not. They're a semi-veteran team. There are offensively. There are veterans.
Yeah.
All over the place there. Defensively, we have some young guys in the secondary. We have new faces that are along that defensive line. It's just been 2 years for some of the guys.
Yep.
And even some of the backups. At linebacker, we have new guys. We have some new guys. We got a rookie playing. We got a couple 2-year guys that are finally stepping up playing. That's play special teams that are stepping up. So most of the guys, it's been maybe the 2 to 3 years. Some of the guys that are playing and not all the time. It seems like not all the time they're on the same page. Everybody's playing hard. I don't like missed tackles in the secondary. I hate that stuff. But I guess all the teams are doing it nowadays. You can't when you're in the secondary. You're the last man before the goal line. you have to make a tackle. And I don't care where you make that tackle, you have to make plays. And we have our good days, and then we have our some days that we're just not on top of it the way we should be. And then sometimes, you can be out-coached. We understand that. There are game plans, and you have to adjust the game plan as you go. You can't be afraid to adjust the game plan. You can't sit on it, they call it insanity, a person that keeps on doing the same thing and expect different results.
Yep.
So you have to make adjustments as you go, and you have to be willing to make adjustments, and some people can, some people can't. Some people can put a game plan together, but when it's time to make adjustments, they still feel that, this is the game plan. They're going to come back to it. They're going to come back to it, and they run out of time and say, wow, they didn't come back to it.
You've done a lot of charity work in the past, and I continue to do so. I know at one point you served on the board of a lot of different charities, one of which was near and dear to my heart, which is the March of Dimes. I'm a big March of Dimes supporter. But yes. What does being able to give back and do this kind of work mean to you? This is
to do charity work. It's a gift. See, because everybody's not called to do charity work.
True.
And if it was, everybody would be doing it. Most people go to work and come home and go get whatever they're going to do in the evening and go home and go to bed. Some people it seems like it's a calling for them to get involved. It's just something that touches the heartstring when they see somebody that is not as well-to-do as they are. Sometimes they don't even have to be, they don't even have to have much. But they have a place in their heart that reaches out to other people, okay?
Yep.
It's okay that some people don't. All my days to for some reason or another, and I guess I learned it from my grandmother and my mother, they would always and help somebody help. Even when they didn't have anything, they would give $5 to someone. I said, Golly, Mom, you don't have that kind of money. But they would do it.
Yep.
They would do it. And so it's easy for me. It's not a big deal. It's not at all. It's just easy for me to do it. Some people, it's just not easy for them to do it. They don't see it. They can't help themselves, but they just don't see it. And it goes back to what I said. The books you read, the people you associate with. So there are people that come from an era of time that they feel that everything belongs to them. This is the way it is. And so I started my own foundation after I end up being a victim of cancer, which is prostate cancer.
Right.
And I started a foundation some years ago, and it's still going on for prostate cancer. Us, as the National Football League players, we have a chapter in Pittsburgh, and we do work here. At times it's just do some things here locally even.
You've got an event upcoming with the NFLPA that you mentioned. Tell us a little bit about that event and what it's supporting.
Okay. The event we have coming up, every year we do a fundraiser. We used to do golf tournaments, but we've changed it. Last year, we decided to do a kickoff the holidays with your favorite NFL players. We're going to do that again this year. It's our second annual. It's called Kick Off the Holidays with your favorite NFL players. And we just don't have Pittsburgh Steelers living in our area. We got a lot of guys that played for other teams here that are from this area too, okay, that are not Pittsburgh Steelers. So we all get together and we do this event. And this event is going to be just a good time. It's going to be just a lot of food. There's going to be some dancing. We're going to have DJ. And what we do is the players is we just entertain. We just mingle with you, take pictures with you, have conversations with you, and really enjoy yourself. It's not like just an autograph session type thing. It's an opportunity for you to come out and hang out with your favorite NFL players, and we just have a great time. Last year was a great time, and this year's going to be just even better. And it's going to be at the Sheraton Station Square in Pittsburgh. And the date is December the 8th. It's going to be coming up. And you can buy tickets through our website, www.nflplayersassociationpittsburgh.com. Or you can contact Kelly Hanna at 412-680-3222.
Awesome. And it's, I think it's supporting scholarships for
it is supporting scholarships for kids that are not receiving a full scholarship. We give scholarships, we break it evenly. Last year we gave 8 scholarships, 4 female, 4 males.
Awesome. I mean, as you said, the more you learn, the more you grow, the more you're exposed to different people and different ideas through either books or education. I mean, that's a great cause because you're helping these kids expand their horizons.
Exactly. Okay, they're getting the opportunity that even the guys that receive full scholarships could use a little extra help when it comes to dollars. But these kids are not receiving a full scholarship at all. Some of them may receive a partial scholarship, and some of them may not receive. Only scholarship they're receiving is maybe based on their academics.
Yep.
They're not receiving anything as far as sports are concerned. But they want to go to college, and they want to be involved. Some of them end up being walk-ons. But what we do is we raise money to help those kids along, give them the opportunity to go to college.
Yep, and I think that's a great cause as well. So before I let you get out of here, there's 2 questions. Nobody leaves the show as a guest without answering 2 questions. One of them, I call it the Big Kahuna question, because it's a question that Joe Kuzma, who is the founder of the site, always asks, which is, tell us something about yourself, something about Robin Cole that we wouldn't know or we might be surprised to know.
Oh, well, as a football player, and if anybody ever watched me on the football field, I would take on King Kong, and I'd figure out a way to bring him down. Well, bro, when I was a kid, I was afraid of King Kong. I was afraid of the dark. You could not turn the lights off on me, man, because you remember the say, he's a fraidy cat.
Yeah.
That was me. I was a fraidy cat. In fact, till today, don't you sneak up on me and try to boo me, because if you do, you may get knocked out.
All right.
Because, I'm just that jumpy.
Everybody who's going to the event, be forewarned. Do not sneak up on Robin.
Do not sneak up on me and boo me, okay? Because I'm just that. My kids used to do it all the time. They laugh about it. But I was just that jumpy. I was a guy, and I had, when I was young, I used to think the boogeyman was under the bed. I had one of those challenges, and I'm not the only child that had and went through these types of things.
Absolutely.
But that was one of the things that I went through that a lot of people don't know about. In fact, my brothers, I was talking to him about it last year. He said, "Man, I forgot all about that."
All right, this last one is mine, and it's my own personal obsession. So, I'm obsessed with nicknames, and I know, Donnie Shell was the torpedo, but I'm curious, did you ever have a nickname that stuck with you?
Oh, shucks, yeah. If you call one of the players and ask him my nickname, everybody on the team knew it. My nickname was Chili Bowl.
Chili Bowl. I love it.
Chili Bowl. Most of the players call me Chili Bowl. That name came from the bowl haircut.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and when I was in the 7th grade, my dad was supposed to take us to the barber to get a haircut. We ended up over at his brother's house, my uncle's house, and he cut our hair with those hand clippers. And he cut around the sides and left some hair on the top of the head. And when we got back home, my brothers and I, there was a football game that we lived right across the street from the school, and there was a little grass area, and we played football there. And when we came back from that haircut, the guys were over there playing, and I hit the door, and I said, I'm going across the street to play football with the guys. I stopped the football game. They started laughing at me, and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And I didn't really take a look at my head myself. One of the guys, this is how it went, one of the guys said, man, look at that head. And then the next one says, looks like somebody put a bowl on your head. And then one of the other guys said, "Yeah, look like somebody put a chili bowl on your head." and then the other guy put it together, and says, "Chili bowl Cole."
Chili bowl Cole.
And that was it.
I love it.
Just like that's the way it happened.
Well, if you ever see a guy
I've
come
been
up
chili
to
bowl
you,
ever since.
Yeah, if you ever see a guy with a mini helmet come up to you at one of these things and ask for an autograph and says, "I want you to sign Chili Bowl," you'll know it's me.
Okay, for sure, because nobody's ever asked me.
All right, Robin, again, thanks very much for coming on. I appreciate it. We've kept you longer than we intended to. It was a pleasure.
Having me on the show, and remember, people, remember to kick off the holidays with your favorite NFL player. That's at Sheraton Station Square, and you can go to the website, NFL Players Association, Pittsburgh.com.
Absolutely. It's a great cause, everybody. Check it out, and if you have no plans for Friday night, it's well worth doing.
Come on out.
Yep, come on out. So that's going to wrap it up for us on this edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. Again, my name is Brian Roach. Our guest has been Robin Cole. Until the next time, everyone, it's chaos out there. be kind.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.